So, there you go. That's all you need to know about getting the best possible video out of your Sega Master System. Thankfully, it's one of the easier systems to get into when it comes to RGB. I'd absolutely go with the first version of the console if you're looking to get the most out of the system visually. And you don't even have to mod it.
You lied to me, Corey. Greetings in the Tech Cave, Fenris here, and today we are taking a look at the Sega Master System. Now, this system was sent in by my good friend Corey from My Life in Gaming, and this system in particular is actually his childhood Master System, and he has expressed to me how he wishes to integrate this system back to his main setup. However, what's holding him back from doing so is the fact that this system has a really dark video output, which, when it comes to these Model 1 Master Systems, it's largely inconsistent on whether or not you will have a system with good video levels or dark video levels. So, when I showed him a new solution that my friend Zaxor made for the Master System, he was interested in getting it installed into his unit, which is what we have going on here. Now, this is a parcel that contains not only the new video mod for this system, but also an FM mod from Tim Worthington, as well as a fresh cap kit. So, by the end of this, we will have a truly glorious Master System for Corey to enjoy. So, let's not waste any more time and get straight to it. So the first order of business will be the cap kit. Naturally, we sourced this kit from Console 5, and we decided to go for it due to the fact that this system is rather old, so it wouldn't hurt to give it a fresh set of caps to keep it going for the long run. Now, the only two caps that we are not going to be populating are C28 and C49, and you will see why for both when they come back up later on in this video. But one more thing that I do need to address is this, the heatsink. Now, I did try to go in with my screwdriver to see if I can get the screw out of here, but unfortunately, I just can't fit my screwdriver in to loosen the screw that bolts the voltage regulator to this heatsink. So what I'm going to have to do is, instead, I'm just going to have to remove these two screws and hit the voltage regulator with my desoldering gun in order to remove this heatsink, and we can have access to the rest of the caps. So let's not waste any time and get to it. Okay, with the cap kit installed, we can now move on to the next step of the mod, and that is the all-new Sega Master Bypass. Now, this is a comprehensive kit made by my buddy, Zaxor, and is compatible with the Sega Master System, Mark III, and SG-1002, so long as it has the 315-5066 VDP. With this kit, we can not only provide clean audio and RGB with proper video levels, but also add S-video functionality to the system as well, with all of it being outputted through this nice little 10-pin mini DIN like the Sega Saturn. So buckle up, folks, and follow along. So to get started with the prep work, we need to first remove this RF module because this is where we're going to be mounting the 10-pin mini DIN. And in order to do so, all we need to remove are these 4 ground tabs and these 4 solder points. So let's get to it. Okay, so with the RF module removed, we can now move on to the next step. Now, what we need to do is we need to remove 3 resistors in order to disconnect the RGB lines from the VDP to the encoder. And those 3 resistors are going to be R6, R7, and R8. And as far as where we're going to be tapping into our RGB lines, we're going to be tapping into them from the rightmost pins of each of these resistors. And to confirm this, all we need to do is take our multimeter, oops, touched the 2 probes by accident, and we just need to probe one end of the resistor and probe the other end to our VDP. There we go. Wasn't getting a good probe on R6. Now let's move on to R7. That's good. And R8. Perfect. So we've confirmed that it's the rightmost pads for each of these resistors. So, like I said, we just need to remove them and attach our wires. Okay, so the next step of this process is we need to install our mounting bracket for the 10-pin mini DIN. Now, we need to line them up with these 2 holes here, like so. But in order to give this thing a little bit more strength, we need to add a couple of component legs in order to reinforce this board and help it line up better. So let's not waste any time and get to it. All right, so next step of the process, we need to tap 9 volt and ground. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to tap 9 volts straight from the regulator because the way the regulator is mounted on this particular revision, it's not easy to access. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to tap 9 volts from the left pad of C2 and ground from the right pad of C3. And just to verify, we're going to probe our multimeter on the input side where the regulator would be, and we're just going to tap C2. All right, so there's our 9 volt signal. And there's our ground. So we're just going to go ahead and attach our wires to these two capacitors here and move on to the next step. All right, so next step of the process, we're going to be attaching our audio, C-Sync, Chroma, and Luma lines. So C-Sync is going to come from pin 11, while Chroma and Luma are going to come from pins 13 and 14 respectively. Now, this is for the V7040. If you're using the CXA1145, those three signals are in different locations. Now, as for audio, we're actually going to be pulling it from pin 4 of the RF module. And the reason for that is, normally the instructions call for pulling audio from the positive side of C49 or whichever capacitor your audio is coming from. But the reason why we're going to be pulling it from pin 4 of the RF module is we're going to be adding a different audio mod to this board. So in order to integrate audio to the Sega Master bypass, we actually need to pull from the negative lead, which connects to pin 4 of the RF module. So let's not waste any time and get to it. Okay, so I think we have enough wires on the board to which we can begin prepping the Sega Master bypass. So all we need to do to prep it is we need to strap the 5124 VDP jumper as well as the M3 jumper on CVBS. So let's not waste any time and get to it. Alright, so now we need to make a decision as to where we are going to mount the Sega Master bypass. And after some careful consideration and pushing some of these ceramic caps down, I've decided that the most optimal position is going to be right here. This will offer the shortest wire path for all signals, and as well, it still allows me to attach the flex cable without it obstructing anything too major. So let's get some double-sided sticky foam, attach it on top of this RAM chip, and get this mounted. Okay, so we have the Sega Master Bypass mostly wired up, but we're not done adding wires to it. We still need to do the composite video restore. That way S-Video as well as composite video will work through the 10-pin mini DIN. So in order to do that, we need to first wire our RGB outputs from these pads to the opposite holes in which we snagged our RGB inputs. Now, as far as our composite lead, we're going to be tapping it from the positive lead of C28 here. So let's not waste any time and get to it. All right, with the Sega Master Bypass fully wired up, all we need to do now is take our 10-pin mini DIN interface board, seat that on, solder that up, and attach our ribbon cable. So let's get to it. So with the Sega Master Bypass installed, we can now move on to the final mod for this system, and that is the SMS-FM by Tim Worthington. Now for those that don't know, there are a few games in the Master System library that support FM audio. However, Sega never released an attachment to enable this functionality in either North America or Europe. They did release an attachment for this for the Sega Mark III in Japan, and the Japanese Master System had that functionality built in. So what this mod does is it enables that functionality into both North American and European Master Systems. Now, also included with this kit is a switch to either enable or disable the SMS-FM board. This is to allow users to switch between PSG and FM audio, as well as maintain compatibility with a few games that crash when they detect FM sound hardware. Now, it also has a third position that switches the console to a Japanese region, but this functionality may or may not work depending on the console. If it doesn't work, there is a way to make it work, but for now, let's just focus on prepping this mod for installation. So the first order of business is we need to attach this cartridge slot to the SMS-FM board. Now, when attaching this slot, you don't do it straightforward like so. The reason why is because if we do it like this, the top of this board will hit the top of the Master System. So what we actually need to do is we need to install it at an inward angle, like so. That way there's enough clearance for the board to rest inside the Sega Master System without it hitting anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach this cartridge slot to the board and get to it. Alright, with the cartridge slot attached, all we need to do now is install the little connector here for our switch. And install our switch to the top shell. But I'll show you how to do that later. For now, let's get this soldered in. Okay, so I have the top shell here, and the reason why is I'm going to install the SMS FM switch where the channel select switch used to be for the RF. But in order to do so, I need to actually remove the second nut as well as this fastening washer that sits in between. The reason why is if we were to do it just like this, there is like not enough room for this washer to, or sorry, this nut to lock in to the hole. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to take a couple of washers here, and we're specifically going to use an M5 and an M6 washer. The M5 is going to be used inside, while the M6 is going to be used outside. So the way it should look is we remove these two. We put the M5 washer like so. Slip it into the hole, which should kind of hold the switch into place. It at least prevents it from just going all the way through. Take our M6 washer. See if we can kind of line it up in such a way that covers the hole a little better. Then we take our nut. And it's going to be really tight, but as you can see, with a little bit of work and some adjustments, we can make it happen. So we got the switch installed, and we'll worry about this later on. So let's move on to installing the mod. Okay, so installing the mod is actually pretty straightforward. All we need to do is take our mod board and install it onto the edge connector here, like so. Then we take our shielded conductor and we have to solder it in to the 2 points. Let me see if I can, there we go. We have to solder it into the 2 points here for C49. The white wire that's inside our shielded wire goes into the positive leg of C49, while the red wire goes to the negative leg. And this is why we soldered to the RF modulator for the audio input of our Sega Master bypass. Normally, this wire would go to the positive leg here and just use the default Master System audio. But since we're installing an FM mod, we're just going to attach our FM audio first. That way, the output of the SMS FM goes to our Sega Master bypass. Now, we do also need to wire in shielding, and fortunately, let me just grab my tweezers here. All around here is ground, So what we can do is we can scrape a little bit of this mask off here and attach our shielding wire right here. So without further delay, let's get to it. Alright, and with that, we have the Sega Master bypass installed, as well as the SMS-FM. So all we need to do now is reattach our voltage regulator and give this system a quick test. Alright, so I have the Master System all hooked up here. I got my copy of Afterburner plugged in, because it's the only game I have that actually uses FM. And as well, I got my Sega Saturn RGB cable plugged in, so let's give this thing a test. So we're going to fire it up, and I have it set to Japanese mode, so that's not the Japanese BIOS. So it does look like we need to do that extra wire in order to do Japanese mode on this thing, but let's see if FM works. And FM does work. Although I am noticing, if you look really close, it looks like we do have some interference in the picture, and that's not the fault of the mod itself. Unfortunately, actually let me turn this off. Unfortunately, with this particular version of the Master System, if you look really closely, the RGB traces run right next to this oscillator crystal here, which does create some interference. So it looks like what I will have to do is for the RGB lines going to the Sega Master bypass, I will have to lift the RGB pins off the 315-5124. And as well, I am going to need to lift pin 19 of the 315-5216 and route that straight to the SMS-FM. So, looks like our work is not done. Let's get to it. Okay, so we need to lift 4 pins in order to ensure that our Sega Master bypass and our SMS-FM mods work correctly. So for the SMS-FM, we need to lift pin 19 of the 315-5216 and route it to a small pad on the board labeled IORQ. As for the master bypass, we need to lift pins 26, 27, and 28 of the 315-5124 and route our wires in such a way that it doesn't go over the crystal here. So let's not waste any time, get some desolder braid, because unfortunately my desolder gun's tip is a little too large, and get these pins lifted. Okay, so I've been at this for a couple hours now, and I might as well just show you what I've done so far. So as you can see, I have the RGB lines isolated and hooked up to the bypass board, but you'll see a fourth wire. That's C-Sync. I also decided to isolate that and wire it up to the master bypass, but also make sure that the wire is also linked to the video encoder here. That way I can still get my composite and S-video signals. And as well, I did route pin 19 to the FM board, so we should get the Japanese BIOS. So let's fire this up. Oh wait, I gotta switch it to RGB. Fire it up. And as you can see in here, we are still working. Wait a little bit. And there's the Sega Mark III logo. So we are on the Japanese BIOS. And unfortunately, I'm not sure how well this is going to pick up on camera again. The faint jail bars are still there. Now, I've tried... Let's just turn this off. I've tried adding bypass capacitors to this. I've tried seeing if rerouting the wires a bit might improve the image. Unfortunately, no matter what I do, I can't get rid of those faint jail bars. So I think it's just the nature of this particular master system, which I guess I'm not too surprised. It's really difficult to get some master systems looking good, and heck, it's even difficult to get some Genesis Model 1s looking good. So, you know, take what you can get. But it does look good on its own. It just can't look perfect. But it is what it is. Hopefully Corey still loves it all the same. But that out of the way though, let's also test our other signals. So we're going to unplug RGB, plug in composite. We're going to switch over to composite video. And you know what? Let's also flick the switch. Wait for it to boot. And we're in US mode, but with FM active. Alright, turn that off. Unplug that. And we're going to plug in our S-video cable. Now you're going to notice some jail bars in the picture with S-video. It's not because of the mod. Hang on. But yeah, there we go. It's not because of the mod, it's just because I'm using a really low quality S-video cable. It's just what I have on me at the moment. I do hope to get an Insurrection S-video cable for the Saturn as well as the Super Nintendo someday, but for now, I work with what I got. So, scroll down to S-video. Now we're not going to have audio because audio is not hooked up for S-video. But if we wait for it to boot up, we do have S-video, but like I said, you will notice some jail bars in the image, and it's not because of the mod, it's just because of the cable that I'm using. So with that out of the way, we've confirmed that everything does work. So now that we've confirmed that the system is fully working, all we need to do now is clean it up and put it back together. So let's get to it. Alright, we just need to make one more modification to this system, and that is to the top shielding here. Now, in order to integrate the top shielding onto the Master System, we need to cut off this bit of metal right here, as well as this bit of metal right here. The reason why is because if we don't, it's going to end up hitting the SMS-FM, as well as the Sega Master Bypass's DIN output. So I'm just going to go off camera with a Dremel and cut these off, and come back with the final result. Alright, so I had to cut a lot more than I thought that I would. So this part I was able to just bend inward so that way it wouldn't hit the multi-out. But for this part of the shielding right here for the SMS-FM, I had to literally cut this whole chunk out just so that way the SMS-FM didn't make contact with the shielding. But now that we've cut all that out, this should fit much easier. And as we can see, it does. So we're just gonna get some screws on this thing and give it a good test. Okay, so I have the top shell here, and the reason why is we need to make one more modification to the shell before we call it good. And that is, we need to slightly drill out the RF out port. The reason why is, if we don't, our cables don't really fit in very well. I mean, they fit, but it's a very tight fit. So we need to just widen the hole just ever so slightly, so that way our cables can slide in and out nicely. So what I've done is I bought myself a new step drill bit to help with the process. So let's get the shell up and widen the hole. And with that, the Sega Master System is finally complete. So we have the system fully recapped, and as well, we have a nice SMS-FM installed, as well as the Sega Master Bypass. So now, Corey can enjoy his childhood system with both FM audio and high quality video output. So with that, thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned towards the end of the video because I do have some comparison shots on the way. But in the meantime, if you liked what you saw, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, until the blue moon rises, I'll see you next time.